Welcome to the Recruiter Startup Podcast. My name's Dualta, and in this podcast series, I will be speaking to investors, advisors, entrepreneurs, and recruiters who are based all over the world, and we'll be discussing how to set up, scale, and operate a world-class recruitment company. And today, we're going to speak to somebody who's been through the entire journey, and he's in his early 30s. Which is pretty phenomenal. So his name is Saif Kidwai, and he is the co-founder of Digital Gurus, and he's based out in Dubai. So we had a great chat. He was in a coffee shop, so the sound is probably not as good as it has been on previous, but it adds a little bit of atmosphere to it, and great story. So some key points in it that I think you really like is they always knew that they were going to sell the business, and he managed to find an advisor, and we went into the type of things that advisor, whose name is John O'Sullivan, the type of things that John came in and structured are really interesting, and it had a lasting effect on their exit, and that relationship has been key to his story. So we had a great chat about that and the business and how to scale it, and some of the issues that he had throughout the years and what they're currently up to. And I didn't get to go into all the details that you probably want to hear if you're a recruiter looking to go abroad to Dubai. We'll probably save that for the next time that we catch up, or for a time when I get over to Dubai and can live the high life a little bit. But until then, enjoy the chat with Saif, and let me know what you think about it. If you like it, please do give it 5 stars and send it to another recruiter. I think this is a really inspirational story. Fair play to him, and I wish him further success. Not that he needs it. Hiya, Saif. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And yourself?
I am not bad. Although the weather's not great. Do you know where I wish I was today?
Where's that?
I wish I was sitting next to you in Dubai, sipping a coffee, watching the world go by.
Yeah, it's not too bad, to be honest. I mean, we're in the height of winter, and it's 25 degrees today. So, yeah, really rough.
So, welcome to the Recruiter Startup Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great stuff. I put the word out to Dubai. I said, who do we need to speak to? And the people spoke. They said, you need to get Saif on the podcast. So we delivered what we were asked to, and here you are.
Awesome. Amazing. Well, no, it's actually my first podcast, so looking forward to seeing how it goes.
Okay, awesome. Social proofing, it's where it's all at, isn't it?
Yes.
If I ask people who should I speak to in Dubai, and they're saying you, then you've done something right. So I think we'll jump into some of that later. But I suppose I want to ask you to start. It looks like you got a good degree, a proper degree, one that required a bit more study than my sales and marketing degree, and you went into recruitment quite early on. Talk to me about those early years in recruitment, and they were just before the recession, right?
Yeah, that's right. So I happened to do financial economics at university because I think when you're 18, you don't really know exactly what you want to do, but I just knew I wanted to make money, and natural, you put 2 and 2 together and you think finance sounds like a really good route. And I did that, and it was cool, but a little bit boring and tedious. I think the numbers just got to me, and what actually transpired was in my final year at university, one of my partner at the time, or she still is actually, her best friend was in recruitment, and she was a year older and she was already working. And she came up to me, and at one time we went for lunch. Oh yeah, I just made £20,000 this month, and my eyes just lit up, and I was like, "What? What is this? What is this recruitment stuff?" And really surprised, like, what, 21 years old and earning that sort of money. I was just like, this is crazy. And then she sort of explained a little bit about what she did, and business development and finding people, and it sort of sounded reasonable or okay. So I finished my degree in that summer. I just started applying online for a couple of just recruitment jobs, just on the normal online job boards, and I got a call back from a few places, some of the sort of old school classic ones like your Badenoch and Clark and S3s, etc. And then there was a small boutique that got in touch with me, and I went down for an interview there, and they were literally on a second floor in a really rundown office. It looked really small. There was like maybe 10 people there at the time. I remember the meeting room was right by the toilet, and the kitchen was right there as well. And I was like, "What is this?"
And Saif, was it not? Would it not have been an option for you to going into banking or being a financial trader, something maybe a little further up the food chain? Would that not have been the normal route for somebody with your degree?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. I think for me though, what really sort of intrigued me about with recruitment was it didn't matter about how much experience you had or how many years you'd been doing something. The earning potential seemed to almost be instant if you were good at it.
Uh, and did that turn out to be true in your first job?
It did actually. It was something that I happened to take to recruitment quite quickly, and the market and the company I actually joined happened to specialize within digital media. And that was at a point, I think this was 2006, so it was a time where there were not many competitors. It was all still quite new, and being a bit of a geek myself and into my gadgets and stuff, and even when I was working part-time at university, I worked in like Dixon's, so I was selling TVs and cameras and stuff. So I felt it was just something that I really suited. And I started off working at a dual desk, so contract and perm. And I was recruiting for any type of discipline within digital media, so web designers, developers, project managers, etc.
And you were probably able to do that back then because the market was so small compared to the complexities of the digital world right now, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think even when we made the decision to set up ourselves, so I worked in that company for 18 months, and I was top biller. Me and my co-founder, so two of us, we ended up setting up Digital Gurus, and it was okay. So we were the two top billers there, and I think within sort of a year of being within the business, we realized that, you know what, there's a real market here, and there's something that we can really do, and get our teeth stuck into. And mind you, we were still relatively young, so I was 22, and when we first started the business, I was 23.
Wow,
This was in 2008.
that's fantastic. So before I ask you about the recession and that, I just want to jump in. You got your branding right from day one. How did you? How, I appreciate you're in the digital world. You're seeing this. Did you hire somebody to do that for you? Did you come up with it yourself? Because like it's a brand that has like stood the test of time, and a lot don't. Was there a process that you went, or did you hire anybody?
No, we didn't actually. So it was something that we chose to do ourselves. So the name Digital Gurus was, we just thought it up. The term guru was being thrown about at that time. And the fact the space that we were going into, we felt that the name was quite powerful, and it sort of almost did exactly as it said on the tin. And for us, because we were in that digital space, we had lots of contacts. So we were really lucky. So web designers, developers, we knew marketing guys. And we knew that we wanted our brand and website and presence to match some of the clients that we actually worked with. We wanted them to go onto our website and go, you know what, their website looks amazing. It's as good as something we would do. We should be working with these guys because they must know what they're talking about. And we really wanted to get that credibility from an early stage. So we started up a Twitter page, Facebook, and I remember our first website was built in Flash, and it was really interactive. We had like digital writing, which was across the screen, and it was something that when you go onto it, it was visually striking, and it looked nothing like a normal recruitment company. And even the tone of language we used, something in the way that we would just speak to friends, and try to make it as personable and as less corporate as we possibly could. Because also the sector that we were in, the guys, the clients that we work with, the t-shirts, beards, tattoos, earrings, it doesn't matter. It comes down to the talent.
Yeah, I think you were an early adopter at that. It's easy to say that now in hindsight, and to look back and say that you just seen that and then that's what you did. But the whole marketplace has copied you in the years that have come, because back then, I can't remember anybody doing that.
Yeah, there wasn't. I mean, we built our own private job board. We were the first recruitment agency to build an interactive map on our website where we would post our jobs and you could see where in London the jobs were. So, because we realized that the choice for candidates was so vast that people were actually able to pick where they'd want to work and which area. And if they could see, oh, there's a job which is in North London, you just click on that in the map and it will tell you the job. And you were able to narrow down your search fields into whichever area you wanted to look. And also we were very early adopters of writing blogs and articles and giving information back to the industry that we were working in. And I remember within the first, I think, 18 months of starting the business, we partnered up with an events business called Glug London. And we agreed a year partnership with them to co-sponsor each event that they did once a month, which was for the digital community. And that was great because it blew up from being 50 people in month one to 300 people coming down by the end of the year. And it was a really, really good way for us just to keep reinforcing our brand, our name, and really networking properly outside of just your normal cold calls and biz dev.
Yeah. So from the outside looking in, you're matching your industry, you're giving back to the community, and you're positioning yourself well. Under the hood, you're using traditional recruitment mechanisms of what you've learned. Has that changed throughout the years? Has the way you do business evolved?
Yeah, I think it always has to constantly evolve. I mean, when we first started up, we were completely self-funded. So it was all the savings that we had, we put straight back into the business. So we were only able to recruit graduates at that initial stage, low salaries, and we had to take the risk that we were going to train them and invest our time in them. And they could become amazing and they could get headhunted and leave the business. But it was something that it was all we could do. But in terms of sort of recruitment, we actually adopted LinkedIn Recruiter really early on. I think we were one of the, maybe by year 2 or year 3, we were using the LinkedIn Recruiter licenses, where we got to a stage where everyone in the business was using it. And LinkedIn were using us as case studies for other recruitment businesses as to why they should use that technology.
I remember sitting in Robert Walters in 2011, 2012 in a cheap suit that I didn't want to be in, not feeling that I had the same mentality of wanting to be corporate as maybe the management team had.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember seeing your brand and your offices, and it blew me away. You were one of the first agencies to really adopt that look and feel of a co-working space as well, weren't you?
Yeah, definitely. So I think in our first 4 years, we moved offices 5 times. So it was, and we went to, obviously we started off in my parents' house at the beginning.
How did your parents find that?
Well, well, they got sick of us after about 6 months because I
God,
think
they're good,
that was
aren't they?
yeah, they did well, to be honest. But they would go to work, so the boys would come down in the morning. I'd wake up, come downstairs. They'd force me to pick them up from the train station, just so it felt like I was doing something. But yeah, we moved there, and then that was sort of mid 2008 when we set up the business, around May time, and then September the credit crunch hit. But we were really lucky. Our costs were low, our cost base was low, and we just had really good relationships at the time. So we were able to carry on growing. So our first office was in Oxford Circus in Great Portland Street. We were subletting off a small marketing agency, and we were in their basement for a little while. And I remember that was the first time we got exposure to like a table tennis table. He just happened to have a table tennis table in the basement downstairs. So when we would have some downtime, we'd just start playing, and we were good at that as well. But it was just one of the first things that we didn't even plan to have something like that. It just happened to be there.
Yeah.
And then he actually went under after about 3 months. So we had to move pretty quickly. So we ended up getting office space in Bond Street. And again, it was another basement office. I think we were paying something like £1,000 a month. And we were really lucky that we were right next door to the Marylebone Hotel. So we used to do all our meetings there to give off the impression that we were this really slick organization. But we were just a couple of guys just dressed really scruffily, just trying to make whatever money we could. And then our real first big move happened in year 2. We moved to Tooley Street in London Bridge. We got really central, right by London Dungeons, and we got an office space that could hold 18 people, and we managed to squeeze 27 people in there. And it was a great period. It was a time where we were still just got to a stage where you have a good week and you can still take everyone out, and you can just about find a Nando's or a restaurant that can handle that many people coming in at once at short notice.
It must have been a great time.
Yeah, it really was. And I mean, even then, the offices were, I mean, we've always had like a stable PlayStation there or in the office just for that downtime. But we decided that we had to go big. And at that point, we actually got introduced to a non-exec director. And he really helped shape our business and our direction and give us
Who was that?
an end goal. So the non is a guy called John O'Sullivan.
Oh, good. This is the second time he's been quoted, actually.
And yeah, that was an amazing period for us. I mean, he ran a recruitment, a networking, monthly networking thing for recruitment owners, like a once a month forum, and he was a non-exec on a couple of businesses. And I remember when we approached him, the fact that he even said yes was huge to us, because it showed, I mean, he gets to see so many businesses every day, but he saw something in us. So he came on board. He brought a financial director, a non-exec, also on board. And together, those two with us, we would have monthly board meetings, and it really helped shape the business and the strategy and the direction that we wanted to go in.
And what type of stuff did they implement that helped you? Was it financial models, or can you kind of walk through what that is?
Yeah, so there was a couple of factors, right? So obviously, we were completely self-funded for up until that stage. So 4 years, everything we made, we put back into the business. We were paying all our contractors through our own payroll. We had, I think, at that point, maybe 100, 150 contractors working for us every week.
Wow, and you had that on your own payroll?
Yeah, and I remember when John spoke to us, and he was like, guys, what are you doing? Like, have you not heard of factoring? Where they can give you the money up front, and then he couldn't believe that we'd been going for so many years, and to us this is all we knew, right? And I remember there was a few times.
You forget how young you were as well, hey?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I remember like 2 days of the week I was doing accounts, and I was having to, out of my 5 days, and I was doing the payroll, and I was making sure, get the list of the contractors, all their bank details, making sure their timesheets and invoices matched up, and then saying who needs to be paid every week. And our cash flow was so tight back then. At some stages, we used to literally have to go to our bank and withdraw 20, 30, 40,000 pounds in one go, and walk to the different banks and pay our contractors one by one. And it got to the stage where all the banks knew us in central London.
Oh, no.
We would just go around, and we were just like, if anyone knew that there were 3 guys walking around central London with this much money on them, it would be really dangerous.
Yeah, and now, of course, when you look at that, you're like, that's the time I should have been hiring people or building my business and using the money wisely. Was that the next stage of how they were? So walk us through that bit.
Yeah, so completely. So what John and Simon came in and did, they were like, okay, well, what do you guys want to do? Do you want this to be a lifestyle business? Do you want to sell it? Do you want to be acquired? Do you want to scale it and go international? And we were sort of just like, well, we always set up the business with the intention that we wanted to sell it, and that we wanted to get a value attached to something that we'd created from scratch. So one of the biggest things with John was he's a big expert in the M&A field and mergers, and from him we were able to get, okay, well, what does a good recruitment business look like? What percentage should be a contractor book? What percentage should be your perm billings? What should be your EBIT at the bottom line? And if you hit this sort of EBIT level, like say £1 million, what is the multiple that you could get for something like that? Would it be 6 times, 7 times? How can we make it 10 times? What do we need to add to our business to make it more and more attractive?
You'd be lucky to get 10 times in today's market.
Yeah, I know, exactly. And
the world has changed.
It really has. And we also then, Simon, our FD, he came in, Simon Michaels, and basically, obviously, we had an accounts person who was doing all our books, but he just came in and said, okay, let's get the books really clean. Let's make it really slick, make sure everything is above board. There's there's nothing that can be questioned, and you're whiter than white in how everything looks. And he just got us in such good order.
So essentially, they come in with the viewpoint of, in 10 years or in 8 years' time, when you exit, this is the type of questions that the M&A people are going to need to answered before we're able to get the right valuation. And then they work backwards on making sure everything's clean, your money's been used in the right way, and you grow to a certain head count and you have your certain EBITDA ready.
Exactly. Yeah. And say if we wanted to get to a million EBIT, and you say the average consultant bills 100K, let's say. So, okay, you need 100 people. So what are we how do we get there if we're currently 30 people? And we want to do it in how many years? 3 or 4 years. So then you work out a backward plan. Okay, well, by 2013, 2014, we need to be 60 people strong. And if we're going to grow that many people, which markets are they going to be in? Is there a market for those guys? So as soon as we knew that, and we knew, okay, next year we need to grow by X amount, the year after we need to grow, we had clear objectives of what we needed to do. And in the meantime, we just had to make sure everyone that we brought on build. So when we moved to Old Street, we acquired an office space which could hold 62 people. It was a 4,000 square foot office. I got interior designers in, and I just helped design the whole office space. And we had a breakout area, table tennis area. We had a massive kitchen with the seating for everyone to sit down and do our company meetings. And our meeting rooms, we got an illustrator in, and he basically drew out the Digital Guru story across the meeting rooms. So when we bring clients or candidates down, there'd be a really great focus.
That's point. Brilliant.
And he did such a good job. We just got him back in, and he did the rest of the office, and he drew some of our consultants dotted around the office, and it just really helped give that personality and character to the business. And that led on to all our branding and marketing across like LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and all of that stuff. And it just helped reinforce the message that we were doing.
Your relationship with the other co-founders, are you the one who's more operations led, given your financial background and the way that you're talking to me? It sounds like
you get a kick out of knowing the numbers and making them work and all of that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really important if there's a couple of co-founders or founders that you all identify your core strengths very early on, and you assign roles and responsibilities so that people don't overlap. And Farouk was one who was very much more sales driven, and I would say he was more of the guy pushing the team and encouraging the sales, and I was handling a lot more of the ops and strategy and helping to build the direction and making sure that we had a solid foundation that we could springboard off.
Yeah, it's interesting. We're the same in the way that we operate. Like, I would have no interest in looking at a spreadsheet or a bank account or an operational plan, but I like creating it.
Yep.
And I like the marketing side. But Charlotte jumps into the other bits. And I'm lucky that our skills kind of counterbalance each other. I'm sure you're grateful for it as well.
Yeah, completely, and it works really well. And I think the whole team also buy into that. And there's clear lines, and everyone knows how it works. And it's almost like a mum-dad relationship, isn't it? And it's something that you work and you get to do.
And so now everything's in order. You kind of feel like you've got a roadmap in order to go. You've survived the recession, and I'm guessing, given your unique proposition at the time, I know there's lots more competition in the marketplace for you now, but at the time, your unique proposition, were you able to pick up lots of good recruiters from old school recruitment firms who firstly wanted to get into a developing industry and were just sick and tired of wearing a suit and tie?
Yeah, definitely. So we went on, when we moved to our office in Old Street, it almost coincided. It was at the 4-year mark, and we won Agency of the Year, Recruitment Agency of the Year at the Mara Awards. It was the first or second year I think they'd done it, and we weren't expecting it, and because we were still relatively small compared to a lot of our competitors, but when we won that, it really helped put our brand on the map industry-wise. So lots of other recruiters were there.
What year was this, sorry?
This was 2012.
Okay, excellent.
2012, yeah. Seems like ages away now. And what it did was lots of senior consultants actually started to approach us. And they had proven track record in the industry, but they were commanding big salaries, and we'd always just hired grads initially. So it was a real big decision for us to, what, are we going to invest and pay out this extra premium for these guys and hope that they can hit the ground running and transfer those relationships over and that work ethic. And it was a bit of a mixed bag, to be honest, because I think the actual Digital Gurus culture that we created was actually very relaxed compared to your traditional IT recruitment companies. We wanted a business where everyone was relatively self-motivated and they had their own personal drivers. And when
doesn't everybody?
Yeah, exactly. And we felt we had that with a lot of the grads that we brought on, and they'd been with us for 2 or 3 years now. They were all billing really well, and they're doing really well. And the more senior guys came with more experience on higher basics, but they'd come into our environment and they weren't used to how relaxed it was, and they would end up coasting a little bit too much, thinking they were still billing the same sort of money that they'd done previously, but they actually weren't doing anything. So we had a lot of failure in that model. We had some really good success stories though, but within another sort of 18 months, we grew the business from 30 people to 60. So we went through a really rapid expansion.
And that's where you come across a lot of casualties, isn't it? Because you're still figuring yourself out. You had your identity, and then you're like, well, the identity probably doesn't go with the roadmap that we set out with the non-exec team. So how do we get from this point to that point without taking in external hires? Was there any lessons learned that you were able to implement after taking in people from the outside in terms of identifying, like, are these, like, does this person need handholded? Like, say if it's somebody from, I don't know, Robert Half or somewhere that the KPIs are quite high, like, if you're not in there to babysit them, how can you be sure they're going to do it? Were you able to kind of put a formula in place to identify who's the right type of character that isn't coming from your own organic development program?
Yeah, it became really apparent. I think, admittedly, for a business of our size, or the size that it sort of got to quite quickly, we actually weren't very good at training guys in that second period, because we were so focused on growth, and the time and dedication we put on our early guys. We just didn't have the bandwidth to recreate that. And we found that the model of us, when we were hiring new people, it actually worked if they had come from a very strict, almost corporate KPI numbers driven environment, so that it was ingrained into them, into the behaviors and how they had to work. For us, then it just came down to identifying the right culture and whether they would fit. And that was probably still really tricky to identify, right?
Yeah.
And
I'm sure it still is.
Yeah, and like, I've probably interviewed 500 recruiters, maybe more, and we've had more than 200 work for us, I'd say, over the years, who've come and gone. And it's still something that you'd still get wrong, I think, to this day. But if they had those core drivers, and that's the key, is how do you identify those, and how do you sort the guys that are talking nonsense from the ones who are actually serious? And I think you just have to, a lot of the times we just went with our gut.
Yeah.
And almost always, if the two of us agreed on someone, it was always 100% yes. A few still slip through, but I think that is just recruitment in general, and there isn't really a perfect model out there. But we've definitely got much better now, and our retention was high as well at that same time. So that was a real course to bring on these guys, but also keep them happy. So a lot of our senior leadership team now have been with us for 6, 7, 8, 9 years.
Yeah, I'm curious as to, so your senior leadership team, you've gone from kind of like a bohemian, cool, relaxed digital agency to a scalable recruitment agency. Did that require a lot of training for the management team to adapt to maybe having to be a bit more quantitative in the way that they managed outcomes, in the way that you build and develop teams?
Yeah, we had to. I think as we got big, once we got to sort of 50, 60 people, there was only so much time myself and Farouk had to give people one-to-one time and individual time to actually see what they were up to. So we really had to fall back onto numbers. And you can see why corporates get to that stage as well. Just from a reporting perspective and trying to spot trends. So we started to measure KPIs. We had a couple of core ones, which were mainly first CVs out and first interviews.
Yeah, that's all I really measure as well.
Yeah, and I think that's the core learning that we took away. They were the core benchmarks that if those numbers are high, the rest should follow. And if it doesn't, then that's where you can identify where it's falling down in the training or the education piece with that particular consultant.
Do you use like Cube 19 or anything like that?
I remember they got in touch with us early on because we were always one of the first to use new technology and stuff. I remember they came to our office. They were literally in Old Street at the same time. But at the time, it just felt a little bit too expensive for us. And we were afraid that it could potentially have gone too corporate. I think from what I've heard from other people have liked it. And I've met recruiters who've worked in businesses who work for us now and said, oh yeah, we used to use it. But at that time, we were going through obviously scaling, but also we had to be really careful with where we spent our money, and it had to be on a crucial thing. I think at one point we were spending something like £200,000 just on LinkedIn a year, on like LinkedIn Recruiter and job ads and stuff like that. So substantial money, and we had to make sure we were spending things in the right areas that were going to generate revenue on the bottom line.
And does your financial controller analyze what your spend is in terms of the return on investment, say for LinkedIn or for Indeed or for whatever you're doing, or is that something you jump into yourself, being a numbers guy?
Yeah, so we used to monitor where our placements were coming from, and we quickly switched off using almost all job boards, really. And the digital market in particular became one which was, because of such a scarcity of talent, it almost became a headhunting model. And the more tools that I keep banging on about, but the tools that LinkedIn brought just really helped. And they were starting to cut back on all the free stuff that they used to do. So it almost became a necessity, a necessary evil.
And at what point did you get your big boy pants on and say, no, it's time to take over the world, and I'm going to go international? What year was that? What did that look like? How did that fit in with what your advisors had told you? Walk us through those early stages.
Yeah, so I guess we needed to hit a particular head count. So we wanted to get up to about 70, 80 consultants, because we thought if we hit that head count, we'll hit the bottom line EBIT that we need. So we mapped out the sectors in London and the UK that we felt that we could do, and how big we could grow those particular teams. And it felt that we could only really get London to about 60 people. Without it starting to really cut in and become a internal competition. We did look at other markets. So we started off a French desk. We just found a French consultant who worked in our office, but recruited into Paris, and that happened for a really short period. We set up one of the first cybersecurity desks, one of the first data and analytics desks, and this was back in 2013, 2014. So we were always able to see which were some of the future technologies that were coming out. But then it became apparent that, you know what, okay, we need to go international. So two of the girls in our team, who were both team leaders, Gillian and Sharon, they'd both been to Australia before. And they approached us and said, hey, look, we'd be interested in moving out there and setting up a DG office, a DG brand.
Hey, man, the thing about Australia, it's not cheap to set up there, right?
No, it really isn't.
It's one of the most expensive places to incorporate, to get staff, to get like, it's crazy. And you know, the percentage rates charged there, they're not what they are in other marketplaces. I suppose the counter argument there is that the salaries are so high and the business is consistent. Was that the thought process?
Yeah, completely. So, I mean, for us, we've always backed our guys. So if someone in our team was doing well and they came to us with an idea or a plan and they wanted to do it, and we backed them and rated them, we typically would go and invest and do something with it. Whether it's, I want to tackle this market in London, or I want to do this, or I want to go international. So when they came to us and they were two senior billers and they had that and they put a business plan together, and we just so happened to, at the same time, because we'd been so frugal with our money, we managed to engage with a factoring business which released a large chunk of money for us, because we had such a massive contract book and we were making some decent money there. So that helped release some of the funds for Australia. But to make things up, we decided to open up Dubai simultaneously. And we just happened to be introduced to a guy through, I think it was a rec to rec at the time. We weren't really looking at Dubai seriously. It was more of a place that, you know what, somewhere we like to go on holiday. It could be a good little side thing, and we'll see how it goes. We didn't really know too much about the market even, but we were just like, if we could add 5 heads there and 5 heads in Sydney, it hits the numbers that we need to. And that was the initial reasoning behind going out to those markets.
You grew relatively slowly in Sydney, it's fair to say, didn't you?
Yeah, it has. I mean, they are still 5 people. I think
it's so hard to get talent.
It's incredibly hard. I think everyone since they've changed the visa regulations, it's much
Yeah.
harder for people to live there. And you can get these 2-year visas, but then after that, there's no guarantee you can stay.
Well, you can extend them for another 2 years. You
Yeah.
know?
And
Uh,
I guess not many people tend to move around anymore because they need to stay in that same job for a while.
yeah, it's. Do you know? Actually, I would say the regulations has actually done my business quite well. Before, I think there was a lot of subpar recruiters going to Australia, and now it's only the best of the best that get through, and they know that they only have 4 years to go over there, make a load of money, and then that's it. We've been steady enough from it, but I actually thought nobody would hire with the regulation changes, like to have to pay somebody 100,000 Australian dollars
Yep.
just to start them off. That's a serious amount of outlay, isn't it?
It really is, and that's what it became. It became a really big challenge for the girls to hire talent there and grow. And they've been really lucky. The team that they have is exceptional. They were one of the best performing teams for the last 2 years now, and they've done really well. And now they're going through a bit of a growth spurt. The Dubai office.
Yeah, talk to me about Dubai. Why am I making no money in Dubai?
So Dubai is a tricky one. So I've been here now for 2 years. The reason I came out here is actually, so Digital Gurus, we were approached 3 years ago by the Rethink Group. And it was an introduction that was made via John O'Sullivan. And they came and they basically acquired us as a recruitment business. They're a large IT recruitment firm with clients such as B Sky B, Marks and Spencer's, Boots, and Ladbrokes. And they were doing these RPOs, sort of smaller Alexander Mann size business and deals. And they really wanted a digital business to complement the IT offering that they had. So that was a huge moment for us, really significant.
Yeah. Can we jump into some of that?
Yeah. So obviously our ultimate goal was to be acquired, right?
I'm guessing you wanted to get to 100 head count, right?
Yeah, I mean we did, and what happened was we never actually got to 100 in the end. What we ended up doing was we had to get the business really streamlined and make it profitable. And we realized with the heads that we had, we could actually hit the numbers that we needed to. We just needed to have optimum productivity, and we couldn't have. We had to. I think that was the only period in running the business where we had to be a little bit ruthless.
I can imagine. I can imagine there's a lot of casualties.
Yeah.
When you're going, okay, I need you all to do more, but do it better.
Yeah, and it's literally like that. And I guess what's always been good for us is we've always been pretty open with our guys. They've always, especially the core senior members that are sort of with us, they've always been aware of sort of the plans and what we were trying to achieve, and everyone bought into that, which really helped. So yeah, I mean, Rethink, they came up to us, they approached us. I think the deal overall, it took maybe about 12 months to conclude. So at that point, we almost stood still for 12 months as a business.
And is John acting as a bit of a go-between?
Yeah.
In this?
Yeah. So he was also a non-exec for Rethink.
Yeah. Right.
So it was a really good connect for us to have, an ally and advocate, and we
God, he groomed that for a long time, didn't he?
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if he had it in his mind for years.
Wow.
And wanted to do something like that.
It's funny, you know, when like there really is levels, isn't there?
Yeah.
And that's amazing.
Really, really is. And they were, at the time, they were still listed on the stock market. They were looking to delist off the stock market. They had to do that. Before they acquired us, they acquired another business 6 months before that. So they were going on a bit of an acquisition spree. So it was everything was a go at once. So we were trying to handle this negotiation, run the business, get it streamlined We had some casualties. We had to make sure everyone was still driving in the same position, but we weren't able to really grow. So I think that year while we were doing the sale, it was the most stagnant we'd been, but bottom line wise, we did really well.
What year was that?
This was 2015.
Oh, and you're still in the business, Saif?
2015, 2016, yeah.
You haven't gone off into the sunset?
No, we haven't actually. I mean, part of the acquisition and the sale was we actually really believed in the larger group and the entity and what they were trying to achieve and build. So where we now have equity in the larger group, we're on the board and have a real direct say in how the wider group operates now.
Does it change your day to day?
I guess for me, on a personal level, I think once the acquisition happened, I still felt like I wanted to have that element of control and freedom, and the opportunity in Dubai came up, and it just seemed to make sense. At the time, the office was going through a transition. We had someone in charge, but the team weren't engaged, and we had people leave for the first time, and they were joining competitors, and that hadn't really ever happened. So we had to make a real big call there. We either shut down the Dubai office, or we do what we did in Sydney and get someone who actually knows the business and understands it to go out there and do it. And timing-wise, spoke to my wife. I've got 3 kids as well. Just like, you know what? If we don't do this now, we may never go abroad. So let's do it. So, and that's what brought me out to Dubai. It's 2 years now, 2 years and a month. So
fantastic. What a great story. Before I let you go, I want to pick your brain on Dubai.
Yeah.
So you've been out there for a while. What are some of the things that surprised you about life there?
So it's extremely relationship driven out here in the region. So when I came out here, to put it into perspective, I was on a business development crazy madness, and I've probably met 60 different clients in the first 3 months. Probably more than I'd done in about 3 years in London. And over here, everyone's willing to pick up the phone to you. They'll have a conversation and they'll meet you for a coffee. But if they don't believe you, or if they don't know that you have a track record in the region, or you don't know someone they know, it's very hard to get that credibility early on. And that's probably been one of the biggest learnings for me. The longer I'm here, the better the business has been year on year, by far. And any of the guys so when I moved out to Dubai, 2 of my guys from London, they moved out and followed me. And then I hired a couple of people from competitors in the region, and then some which were Dubai but hadn't worked in recruitment. So there was a real mix there, and it was really apparent the guys that came from the UK really struggled in the first 6 to 9 months to get up to speed. The culture was a big shift, the pace of recruitment, so it takes a lot longer to get stuff done. It was also really, and they found it incredibly frustrating coming from London, where you could turn around 3 stages in a week to 3 stages in 2 or 3 months, and it was for the same value fee.
From a recruitment perspective, does that mean that you have to have more you have to have more processes going at the same time?
Yeah, so it's a mixture of 2. So what you really learn the longer you're out here is how to really qualify your clients and their jobs better, and you're able to read between the lines in what they say and how they deliver things. If something's urgent to one client, it could mean that they're looking to hire in the next 3 months, whereas someone else urgent could be a week. And then we started leaning towards more initially like Western-based businesses that had set up offices in the region, because we felt they'd understand the wider market and how things work in general in recruitment. But then now we also work with some of the larger family groups and local entities here. But it's a really big and slow process. Even everything here is still done by paper, so you have to go and physically get terms signed, couriered, stamped. People still pay by checks out here.
Wow.
Everything's done face to face. You can't even start working with the client until you have the signed business terms. Like everything, all the paperwork is done, and that could take another 2 or 3 weeks before you even get going on the recruitment. So there can be lots of roadblocks in the way, but once you get past those, it can be really lucrative. So the guys here,
Patience is the key then.
it really is, and not to get
Well, a massive thank you to Saif for coming on the podcast and for going into some great detail on his journey. I loved hearing how they went from being a very flexible, funky startup to a more structured business, and he supercharged that on his way to the exit. And then I think it's fair to say he's toned that back a little bit since, from what I was reading in between the lines. So it's interesting how a founder's vision can slightly change on the path, and he sounds like somebody who's very analytical, and used numbers to predict what was going to happen, and seeking out John O'Sullivan and getting him to structure that deal and to structure them to lead them to a point where he connects the two companies together. I mean, that's pretty amazing. This guy John O'Sullivan sounds like a bit of a don. I'd love to get him on the podcast and pick his brain. To have that type of clout must be pretty special. So yeah, massive thanks to Saif. Really enjoyed learning a bit more about his journey, and the next time we catch up, we'll talk a little bit more about Dubai, and hopefully I'll get over there as well. So we'll be back tomorrow with another fantastic guest. And if you're enjoying the podcast, just drop me a little note on LinkedIn. Be great to know who's listening. It seems we're getting it feels like close to 1,000 a day people listening now, which is great. So I'd love to know who you are, what you're getting from this, what I'm missing in terms of the questions I'm asking, if there's a knowledge gap that you have that I can help you with, just let me know, whatever it is, because I probably don't know what I don't know as well. So anything that you think is relevant for making this better, please do reach out to me. And happy hunting.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.